Well, hello there, community. Good morning from O'Fallon, Illinois, in the United States, for those of you who don't live here in America. And welcome to Devcentral Connects. We were actually not going to be live today. I was going to do a little pre-record, but I thought, man, it's the Devcentral 20th anniversary. I could say things on camera and record it and produce it, but I just wanted to be live because I wanted to be here with you, which is the community. And if there's any opportunity to engage, I want to take that opportunity. So welcome. And we have a couple shout outs. Hello, Leaf from Seattle, and Boo. Boo is all the way across the pond in London, and he is there for InfoSec Europe, or InfoSecurity Europe, rather. So he is representing, along with F5. I've been watching some of his picture. Nathan Britton, who, one of our MVPs in the past, friend of the team. And I just saw that on LinkedIn a few minutes ago that he touched base with him. So Boo, I hope you're having a great show. And everybody else who's there, probably not watching this right now, except Boo. Boo is. So hello, Boo. Have a good week there. And, I guess that's obvious why he's not in the host chair today and I am. But with that, I wanted to, kind of talk about Devcentral Connect's summer schedule. So we are going to back off a little bit. There's no, rhyme or reason why, we have, the day or the weekly cadence rather for 8:30 Pacific, carry that all year. But with Boo doing a little bit of traveling for shows, with all of us between Boo, Aubrey, and I taking some vacation in the summer to be with our families. I'm moving to Kansas City, Missouri here later this summer. And so there's just going to be times where none of us are in the office. And so, on a given day. And so the prep time and everything else with doing streams, we're just going to have a little bit of a reduced schedule. We're not going away. And, on that note, Aubrey and I are doing a Build It Live Thursday. So, on the week where I'm saying, well, we're going to back off a little bit, we actually have 2 shows this week. So, we're not going away. It's just going to be a little bit of a reduced schedule. So yeah, if you followed along with Aubrey and I on Build It Live, we're doing another version coming on Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. That is the 22nd of June. So tune in. We're actually going to take everything that we've learned already, and we're gonna rebuild it from scratch in 1 hour. And so that's the goal that we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it click ops in this episode, and then we're gonna look at what does it take now that we've done the click ops to do building out a workload in distributed cloud. How do we make that even better and doing it with automation? And so that'll come. We'll also be expanding the show beyond just our experiences to looking at other use cases that may be beyond what our application does, and bringing people in who are going to build it live with us on other use cases. So that's going to be fun. This is the 20th anniversary show, and we have a 20th anniversary group on Devcentral. So go to community.f5.com. If you're not registered, and share your story. What have you done with the community over the last 20 years? And so I certainly have my stories, and I'm going to share some of those today. But if you have stories, we'd love to hear them. We'd love to hear how Devcentral has made an impact in your career, maybe even your life. Because for me, not just in my day-to-day and in where I am elsewise, made an impact in my career joining F5 all these years ago. And so we'd love to hear what you have to say, either there on the group, here in the chat. We'd love to hear it. And then finally, before we move on, I wanted to say congrats to the F5 team. Today, we got a message internally that the Brand Activation Experience Silver Merit Award went to F5 for our A Force 4 campaign. And we happened to film some videos on A Force 4 when that first came out. And, Aubrey's is one of my favorites. So I'm going to play that real quick, and I'll be right back.
Hey there, Aubrey here with Devcentral at F5. And in an effort to change things up a little bit and focus on the positivity, we don't want to hear a gripe. We want to know what you are a force for, not what you're against, but what you are a force for out there in the world. So just to give you an example.
So is password 123 a good password?
No, just like
Why not?
Well, it's an easy it's a very guessable password.
Okay, so quick question. Would it be easy for someone to sneak into or out of this house?
Nope, it would not.
Why?
Because we have cameras.
Am a force. Come on, man. Just open the... For security. Let us know what you're a force for.
Testing the windows is probably my favorite part. I laugh every time. So that's good stuff. Okay. Hello, Jose. Welcome to the show. Good to see you again. And so this is Devcentral 20th, and I'll start with my first engagement, which maybe I've told this story live before, but way back in the day, in my customer days, I was working on an issue with like terminal services, and we had terminal server persistence running in an application on the terminal server farm itself. And what would happen was, because we had load balancers in front of them, we had like 66,000 thin clients coming to like 720 terminal servers across 2 data centers. And so, very large deployment. And what would happen is they would come through the load balancer, and then they would get a session terminated, and then they would try to reconnect, and they may come to a different virtual server on one data center, or a different virtual server on the complete opposite data center. And so they would come in that door, and then they would just connect to a terminal server that obviously wasn't their terminal server. And then the Microsoft services on the back end would say, oh, no, that's not right. By the way, you need to go over to this server. And so then, but it would give its direct IP address on the one that you were supposed to go to. And so it would send it. And so instead of coming through the front end load balancing here, it would then go direct to server. And so obviously that's not good, because all the statistics that our load balancers are sending traffic to all these different terminal servers on, they now don't have an accurate count of how many servers or how many sessions are on these servers. And with the thin client as a GUI versus a CLI, and we had a combination of two, I think we were somewhere around 60 sessions per server that we could manage. And so if for whatever reason they started to get outside of load balancing, that would become problematic pretty quickly. We'd be getting calls from the field about slow sessions and all that. So we had to have some kind of a solution. And so we started to look at the TCP dump captures, and we said, oh, well, it is sending the IP address back through that load balanced session initially. And that even though terminal services, our RDP session was a binary protocol and not really well documented, at least at the time, as far as being able to decode it. The first part of that, the session cookie that was being sent back was in clear text. And so, we could pull that out and do something with that. And so, but, I was at the time a network engineer, didn't really know much about, the application layers and all that. And so I just asked the question and say, hey, here's kind of what we're doing. And here's what I'm seeing in the packet capture. Is there anything I can do in an iRule? And at that time, again, iRules, the community was pretty new. We didn't have the Devcentral wiki. We didn't have, iRules documented, anything like that. And so one of the really cool things about the community early on is, like, the core developers of iRules, they wanted to see adoption. They wanted to see, what people were doing. And so they were actually involved in the community. The guys that wrote the TMOS were involved in there. And if you ever see posts from Unruly, Rapmaster C, or Dr. Teeth, dig in and read those things, because those are the guys that were like super involved. Frank is another one that was later. He wasn't there at the very beginning, but they were so involved. And he, Unruly came back with a post. Oh yeah, by the way, you just do this binary decode, blah 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 blah, and 8 seconds later, it had like a 30-line iRule that totally did everything I needed it to do. And I had to customize it a little bit for my environment, but I was blown away at the power of iRules and just, kind of blown away that, core developers of the products were being involved in the community. So, that, from a first engagement standpoint, that was pretty cool and hooked me on a couple levels. Hooked me because everybody was involved and kind and really wanted to see adoption and get everybody excited about using the products that they were building. So that was really cool. And then, I got another interesting thing that happened fairly early on. It was maybe a couple years into the community, all that, but I came out to F5 for training and I was coming out for a class. So I asked my bosses if I could come a day early so I could have a day of meetings with our caseworkers who were assigned to our account and just kind of touch base and have face-to-face time with the people that supported us. And so I got a meeting with them. I got a meeting with a couple guys from product development, couple meetings with guys from product management. And then I got to spend an afternoon with the Devcentral team. So Colin, and Joe and Jeff, and they were really the core of the very beginning. Deb and Don McVitie were there right at the end of before my time with F5. But those three really were the core. And I released a video a couple weeks ago on YouTube, and it's out there on LinkedIn as well. Just a tribute to Colin. Colin passed away a few weeks ago. I guess maybe it's been a month or a month and a half that the time runs together, but still in shock about that. I miss him a lot. He was such a vibrant member of our community with F5, and even after he left F5, he'd come back every now and then to have a conversation with the community and all that. And so you can go check out his video. It's been out there for a couple weeks. One we haven't released yet is for the founders, for Jeff and Joe. And so I'm going to play that real quick.
Jeff Browning and Joe Pruitt, the founders. Joe wanted to get his eye control work out to the masses in a consumable way. Jeff saw the vision and helped make it happen. Thus, Devcentral was born. Jeff was always encouraging us to try new things. And Joe, he was a walking innovation factory. I learned so much from him. We released some The More You Code mock PSAs a while back, and this is my tribute to Joe Pruitt.
The Joe Pruitt is the original author of iControl. He also wrote the iRule editor, and he quite literally birthed Devcentral on a PC under his desk in all of his spare time from his day job. I could do that if I had to.
Oh man, I still laugh. I love doing those. Well, they moved on years ago to different opportunities, but to both of you, Jeff, Joe, sincere gratitude for making Devcentral possible. We're here today because of you. Happy 20th anniversary, guys.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So yeah, Jeff and Joe, and really we all have them to thank for Devcentral even being a thing. And so I'm grateful for that. Alex, thank you so much. Alex along the way was a contributor with articles and really, along my journey as a customer, I got to contribute an article on, believe it or not, I don't even know if it's still out there. Cacti was a network, monitoring application written in Perl. Yes, Perl. And so there were some templates around the early Big IP where you could use SNMP to extrapolate all the OIDs and pull all your stats into, so you could look at, instead of having to log into your Big IPs and look at the RD tool graphs, you could pull all those stats and build your own. And so we had a centralized instance at F5, and somebody else started the template, and I extended it quite a bit at F5. I mean, at my customer, the customer environment I worked at before here, and so because we had F5s everywhere, we had them in POC labs, we had them in we had like a crazy lab environment, and so I was really grateful to have all that equipment. But we had internet exposed, internet DMZ, private side of the internet environments, and then we internal data center environments. So we had them in a lot of places, and so we needed a centralized place to be able to pull all that stuff in. So today there's all kinds of crazy observability tools that do those things, but it was rare, and the ones that were commercial were not that good, and they cost a lot. And so we built on top of the template that somebody had provided to the community in another community, And then I wrote about that and for my own organization, and I had to ask Jeff and Joe, hey, could you use this? And oh yeah. And the code share was kind of born about that same time, where hey, instead of just having articles, why don't we have a place where people can dump their code and contribute things? And so, there's been a lot of innovations over the years, and okay, yeah, thank you, Aubrey. I guess that would be cacti because there's more than one instead of cactuses, which is not a word. Thank you, English language. But I digress. So there's been a lot of innovations over the year. We've done a lot of things. Jeff was always super open about, hey, go do that, go try that. It didn't end with Jeff. Jeff left a long time ago, and we still continue to innovate. With the platform changes. Certainly we've had some missteps with platforms, but our latest platform's awesome, and the team that we have today managing that platform is awesome. Leaf and Leslie and Rebecca are killing it with the stuff, the back end stuff that you guys don't get to see their faces very often, but they are incredible, and they are carrying us forward. And of course, he hates it, but Tony, our fearless leader, is always encouraging us to innovate, and he's like, hey, if whatever I can do to help you guys unleash unleash the Kraken, I'll do that for my Seattle friends and their hockey team. If you can unleash the Kraken with what you do, go figure it out, go do it. And so we continue to do that. And Boo, who's in London this week, but has taken what we started with light boards and has worked and innovated his way to what he calls bright boards, and being able to take out all the time when we're doing light boards. And I still like doing light boards. I have a little mock-up here to my left that I'm working on, which is not quite the breadth of space that we had in the studio, but I like doing light boards because I like to stay in that train of thought and work my way through a scenario. But I like the bright boards too, because it's let's dump a lot of information at you in a really quick, because a lot of people like to consume. It's like, hey, tell me the information, tell me now, tell me briefly so I can get on with my day. And so I think there's place for all of that. But we continue to innovate on stuff like that, and the 360 videos that Peter, who's no longer with us here at F5, the 360 stuff that he and Boo have done at shows like RSA and other shows. It's amazing, and I love consuming in different ways and figuring that stuff out. Leaf and I are here waving at you. There you go. All right, thanks for joining, guys. And so plenty of innovations along the way, and I love it. And we will continue to innovate. And as the way people consume information changes, we'll change along with that, because we're here for you. And so before we end, I wanted to kind of talk about some of the highlights along the way, either stuff I did or just stuff I used. And the first one would be the iRule editor. Okay, the iRule editor was one of those things that jumped at me, and it's like, wow, I didn't know you could not only just write the code, but also connect to the box while writing the code, so that I don't have to write something, upload it, or either paste it in the GUI and then test it and then hope that works out, and then that didn't work, now I got to go back to my VI editor or whatever editor of choice, and it's VI, right? Because it's not Emacs and it's not anything else, but you're just your Notepad. I know some of you guys are Notepad Plus people, and I'm sorry, VI is the bee's knees. And so we can flame war about editors, but when the iRule editor came along, and that was written in C# by Joe, of course, and but it had all kinds of other things, like you could send payloads to your big IP with a right-click menu, and had all kinds of stuff built in, and it hasn't been maintained for years and years and years. However, I know one of our MVPs who you see frequently out in CodeShare and the forums just dumping his tremendous knowledge. He still uses it, and I think he's with the modernization of the Windows platform, I'm sure he's done quite a bit of code adjustments to that tool, but he still uses it, and so it's out there. And I had an iRule editor version I wrote for Mac because I wasn't a Windows user, and I use it every now and then. It's way better than it used to be, and so I don't want to hate on Windows, but I just made a choice along the way to change. And so with that, I wrote a PyQt version and a desktop version for the Mac, and I never released that past alpha because there were some bugs and it was pretty slow, and so it didn't pass my sniff test for usability. And so I didn't want to burden other people with that. And then there was an Eclipse plugin iRule editor. Who remembers that one? Anybody? I want to see a show of hands or clicks or whatever. And but and as people are alluding to out here, yes, this is the big one, and this is the VS Code extension iRules editor. So there's a few extensions. If you go out, check out that post, you get the F5 extension, and that gets you connectivity to the big IP from the Visual Studio Code editor. And then the iRules editor component that's listed in there gives you all the syntax checking and also the security linting. So if you're not doing some things with your iRules, it'll flag it and say, hey, you might want to change this. You might want to set priorities on your events, and it's fairly opinionated. Jim Decker, who wrote it, would tell you, yeah, it's opinionated, and I think this is the way you should write them. So you don't have to follow all those security. The syntax check will fail if you don't do that, but any of the security checks and linting will still allow you to save your iRules. It's just visual, eye candy to tell you, hey, you might want to think about this. So that's awesome, and so that's a iRule editor journey for me, and it's been constant innovation over the years. Some of it by Devcentral people, some of it who have no association to Devcentral other than their community members, and they like to share. And then one of the other things along the way is testing in iRules, and I actually want to share this one. Let me bring it over here because this is another Joe thing, and let me share this out real quick. So this is Joe writing an article about testing iRules from within iRules. In fact, the iRule itself built the iRule itself. So, it's like some crazy meta inception thing. But he walks through, and we had this. So when we go on the road and we'd speak at user groups and we do a Devcentral roadshow, we would have these. Let me see about there. There we go. And so we'd always have questions about different ways to do things, because like many coding languages, you can do things in a lot of different ways, and some ways are good and some ways are not so good, and then some ways it's hey, what feels right to you is just fine. And so when we'd go to roadshows, we'd speak about those things, and we would try to give the best advice that we could to everyone there. So anyway, one of those issues is using the switch versus if else versus at this point, this is an older article, and I rewrote some of this in a newer series, but the match class and match class, find class match is the newer way to do that from V10 and on. But at the time it was fairly new, and so he made a comparison of all that. So anyway, he went through by building all of that, and then after all of the testing was done across different depths of the number of items in a thing, and then how far into that thing that you're matching, he would do a comparison across the different types of issues, whether it was an if else switch, or a data group match. And so, and he dumped all that data out to, I think, Google Charts. Yeah, I think it was Google Charts. And so anyway, landed on the observations where if you just got a few things, if else is fine, then you want to switch to a switch for, a few dozen to 50 or 60 or whatever, less than 100 data groups for anything more than 100. And then you're good. And then order your if else's with the most frequent hits at the top. So, you don't want to go like, obviously if 90% of your traffic is matching, you want that at the very top so that it doesn't have to do like 19 more control loops to get to 90% of your traffic, because I think that stuff slows down. My advice actually was a little bit harder than the use switch for less than 100 comparisons. For me, it was about 20, because then the data gets, you want to separate what's data from what's logic. And so if you get too far into that, just throw it all in a data group so that your logic and your data are separate. And that was kind of the advice that I landed on along the way. Okay, but that was one of those testing things that kind of opened my eyes. Like, wow, you can do some really cool things. And even, I don't have it here, but different people would build different games. Like Joe built a Hunt the Wumpus. I think Tony Torzillo, if I've got his name right, he built a Hangman in an iRule and all that. But just like figuring out how to decode protocols and build protocol servers as iRules. I did a TFTP server to serve up a Cisco bin file for a bootloader for switches or a router for somebody. It's like, well, I don't think you could do that in iRule. It turns out you can. You can recreate TFTP as an iRule and serve all that from memory or from a data group that you're loading or whatever. You can put all that file or all that data in a file, depending on how big it is. You wouldn't want to do that for a super large, but it was a small switch and the bin file wasn't that big. Other things along the way, and we're getting close to time, but the Big IP config visualizer was another one that really landed for me along the way. And this is where you could pump a config to, I think it was, it started as like a Python 2 script. Maybe it was Perl, but no, it was Python, way old Python. And then it would use the GraphViz library and Dot to be able to connect all the different pieces together and then diagram something for you automatically. And so I'm actually working on an update of that. It uses GraphViz as an underlier, but it uses the Python diagrams library, which has modernized everything, makes it look really, really sharp. And you can, write data or text on lines and use different types of lines. So it's one of those things that I'm just working in my spare time, which is not a whole lot, but doing an update on something like that, and not just for Big IP configs, but possibly, folding in Nginx and distributed cloud and Kubernetes workloads and all that, because the tool itself, Diagrams, already has a lot of the built-in Kubernetes graphics into that library. And so anything F5 I'd have to add to that, and Nginx I'd have to add to that. Actually, it might have Nginx because that's there are some native cloud native use cases for that and have been for a while. So those are probably there. Anyway, I'm working on something like that in my spare time. And then I'd say the other thing along the way for me, just my Python journey with iControl. There's been at least 5 versions of an SDK for Python along the way. PyControl v1 was only version 2. PyControl v2 was introduced support for version 3, and also made some things a little bit easier. I'd argue some things a little bit harder than v1. And then Big Suds was a big jump forward. All those first 3 were on the SOAP interface for iControl. And then the F5 Common Python library that I worked on was REST. And I was a contributor, maintainer for that. And that's really kind of my first open source heavy involvement thing that I've worked on. And that was a lot of learning and a lot of growing for me. I had a lot of good mentors in that experience. And then our MVP wrote one called Big REST, which simplifies a lot, and it expects more of you as an end user, but it also makes it fully compatible always with Big IP and Big IQ. And so you always have trade-offs in things that you build. And, the more that you build in makes it a little easier for the customers, but it means you have more to maintain and more to support and more to add and all that. So, you have take the good with the bad, and everybody has their own design goals and all that. But anyway, I could go on and on. Devcentral has been a tremendous experience for me, and I love still being here. I love being part of the community, and I love you all. And so, ever need anything from me, you can hit me at community.f5.com and hit me up in a direct message. My username on the Devcentral community is jrom. You can hit me up on Twitter. It's right there at Jason Rom down here in the lower left. You can email me at j.rom@f5.com. You can get me a lot of different ways. I feel like Dwight now sitting in front of his the guy he's trying to sell to on The Office. It's like you could text me and page me, and back in the day where we had pagers. But seriously, I'm here for you, and I'm not here 24 hours a day for you, but I am here. And so need anything, reach out. And we couldn't be happier to be moving forward for hopefully another 20, 30, 40 years here at Devcentral. Don't think I'll be here that long, but I know that the need for community will continue. The need for just the ability to share and innovate and help will be there. And my goal is to make this the best that we can make it, and to steward the resources we have for good, and help everyone here be better technologists and better people and all that. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being a part of this community for, I've been a part of it for almost the entire duration. I wasn't here day one, but pretty close. And I look forward to being part of the community for a lot longer than that. And so I will leave you with our good buddy, as we say goodbye, with our good buddy John Wagnon, who left to pursue other opportunities a year and a half or so ago. But he wanted to share something with the community as well. So I'll leave him with you, and then we'll see you again Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific for Build It Live. Take care, everyone.
Hi, Devcentral community, John Wagnon here. Congratulations on 20 years of being the best technical community in the world. I'm very thankful that I was officially an F5 member of this community, but I will always stay a member of Devcentral. One of the things I love about Devcentral is the willingness to share knowledge and to help each other. I also love the way that Devcentral challenges me to grow in my own skills. There were many times when I didn't know anything about a specific subject, but I dove into it and I started learning. I shared what I learned with all of you, and you all helped me to learn more and to fine-tune what I had already learned. This is such a special place, and I know that it will thrive for many years to come. So here's to 20 years and many more. I'll see you guys out there in the community.